Before I get started, I want to thank Recorded Amiga Games for the gameplay footage. The top link is their YouTube channel and the bottom link is their website. Okay, so I'm going to look at two Amiga games, Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2. These are really the only ports of Mortal Kombat that eluded me. So naturally I'm going to look at Mortal Kombat 1 first. If you can't already tell, this is essentially a port of the Sega Genesis game. By the way, something you guys should know about this game, it loads a lot. When it gets to the bottom of the screen, it's going to start loading. So I don't know much about the Amiga, but from my understanding, it was a gaming PC put out in the mid-80s. And it appears most Amiga games only support a 2-button joystick. Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 just happen to be some of those games. By the way, it's really loading this long. And this is the only load time I plan to show you. So anyway, I bet you're wondering, how did they make a 5-button game a 2-button game? Now, Mortal Kombat on the Game Gear was a 3-button game and it was still very functional. This, on the other hand, is a little confusing. The controls in this game are extremely weird. Now, to do a sweep, I think you push back, down, kick, but I'm not even sure. And really, I'm still not even sure how to block in the game. I actually went looking for an online guide so I can figure out some of the moves in this game. But no one has put one together and I can't even find something that explains the controls in the game. So unlike the other ports of Mortal Kombat, I'm doing a lot of button mashing in this game. So the Amiga is inferior to the Sega Genesis, being that it is older. You can see the clouds are missing in the background here, and uppercutting the opponent into the pit makes it load for a second. So even though this game has a problem with extremely long load times and the control is kind of weird, I still think this is a solid port of Mortal Kombat. However, I'd much rather play the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo version of this game. And even if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, I can't really recommend this game. And that's because the Genesis version was good, but why are you going to play a worse version of it? And moving on, we're going to take a look at Mortal Kombat 2 for the Amiga, which once again is essentially a port of the Sega Genesis game. Now, a major problem with this one for me, and the same problem we had in the last one, is it's really difficult to play this game with only 2 buttons, and for whatever reason they actually gave you the option to play with 1 button as well. So another major problem that I didn't even bother showing you in the video is it has extremely long load times as well. In fact, it even loads for fatalities. Just take a look. And that was no bullshit. That was an actual load time to do a fatality. Now, I didn't think Mortal Kombat 2 for the Sega Genesis was one of the best ports out there, but I still enjoyed it. And even with the major problems we see in the Amiga version, I still think it's a pretty decent port. To be blunt, it kinda makes me wonder why they decided to even release Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 on the Amiga. And even though I consider these to be pretty decent ports, I find it hard to believe that you're going to want to sit there and play this game for a long time having to deal with these load times. Now, beating this game is pretty much a chore. The load times are just so long, you're actually going to probably see more load time than actual gameplay. And even pulling off fatalities is bittersweet because sometimes you just don't want to wait for the load time to do it. I mean, just look at the load time for this pit fatality, and the actual fatality is only like 2 seconds. It's hardly worth it. So I really can't recommend these versions of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. Between the butchered controls and the extremely long load times, there's just really no point to play this when there's much better versions out there. And these really are just ports of the Sega Genesis games, so if you enjoy the Amiga version, you must enjoy the Sega Genesis version many times more. So as I said earlier, these were the only versions of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 I didn't play, and now having played them, I'm pretty disappointed. So once again, I don't know much about the Amiga or what it's really capable of. This game probably goes far beyond the expectations people had for it. But either way, there's really no reason to play this unless you just want to experience every version of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 like I did.